I need you to think about something before I start. Think about the last time you watched someone you loved walk away from you. Not a breakup, not a fight. Just walk away, turn a corner, disappear. Remember how long you stood there before you moved? Now, imagine you never moved. That's where I am. My name was Park Jun-hyun. I want to say that clearly at the beginning while I still can, because I've learned something about names. They're not as permanent as people think. A name needs a voice to keep it alive, and voices need air, and I haven't needed air in a very long time. I was an A-rank hunter, not the kind that ends up on billboards, not the kind with corporate sponsors or fan accounts, the kind that does the work nobody photographs, the kind that enters gates nobody else wants to enter, comes home quietly, and eats dinner before the food goes cold. I had a wife. Her name was Suyun. She burned rice every Sunday because she refused to watch the pot, said it tasted better when it was a little charred on the bottom. I told her that was insane. She told me I was boring. We argued about it every week for 11 years. I had a daughter. She was 7 years old the last time I saw her. She had a gap between her front teeth. She was embarrassed about it. I told her it made her look like a pirate. She punched me in the arm. The gate opened on a Tuesday. A B-rank designation, routine. My team had cleared dozens like it. We were 3 minutes from the exit when the walls changed color. The dungeon wasn't B-rank. The dungeon had lied. What happened after that was fast. Not painless, but fast. I won't describe it. Not because it was too horrifying, because it wasn't the worst thing that happened to me. What happened after was the worst thing. I woke up standing, not gasping, not confused, just standing, like I had always been standing, like sleep was something that happened to other people. My first thought was, the air feels wrong. My second thought was, I'm not breathing. My third thought was, I don't need to. I looked down at my hands. They were mine. Same shape. Same small scar across the left knuckle from a raid in Busan 3 years before. But the skin was wrong. Too dark. Too still. Not like bruised skin. Like the idea of skin. Like something that had studied what skin looked like and done its best impression. Around me stood hundreds of figures, all of them still. All of them the same non-color. All of them staring forward at nothing. And then I heard the voice, not through my ears, through the thing I had become. Arise. You need to understand something about that word. It wasn't a command that my body obeyed while my mind resisted. It wasn't like being forced. It was worse. It felt like coming home, like the word had been waiting inside me and finally found its door, like I had spent my whole life walking toward that single syllable and I just hadn't known it until now. That's the part that stays with me. That's the part I'll never forgive myself for. I turned toward the voice. Sung Jinwoo was 23 years old. He looked at me the way a general looks at a freshly signed conscript. Not cruel, not cold, not indifferent, just briefly. And then he moved on. And I felt proud. Proud. I knew even then, even in those first moments, that the pride wasn't mine, but it lived in me like it was, and there was nothing I could do about that. People think being a shadow soldier is like being a statue, locked in darkness, unaware, switched off. They're wrong. We're completely aware, all of us, all the time. When Jinwoo doesn't need us, we exist inside his shadow, not sleeping, not unconscious, waiting. Thousands of us stacked in the same dark space, aware of each other the way you're aware of someone standing next to you on a crowded train. You know they're there. You feel the pressure of their existence. But you don't look at them, and they don't look at you, because looking means acknowledging, and acknowledging means remembering. And remembering, I'll get to remembering. The first thing I noticed was sound, not from outside, from inside. The other shadows, some of them still had echoes. Not thoughts, exactly, not voices. More like weather. The night 3 rows to my left carried something that felt like cold stone corridors. Not a memory I could see. Just the feeling of it. Wet rock, torch smoke. Boots on old stairs. The mage somewhere behind me pulsed occasionally with something bright and fast that might have once been panic. An old one, ancient, near the edges of our formation, gave off nothing at all. I didn't understand what that meant then. I do now. The first mission came within what felt like days. Jinwoo needed us. We emerged from his shadow like smoke finding shape. 500, then 1,000. The darkness poured into the world and became an army. I want to describe how it felt to fight as a shadow. There was no fear. That should sound like relief. It doesn't feel like relief. Fear means you have something to lose. I had nothing to lose, which meant every fight was simply a sequence of motions. Move, strike, follow, return, efficient, hollow. Afterward, back inside the shadow, I reached for the memory of my daughter's face. Still there. Round cheeks, gap-toothed smile, a small purple backpack she refused to replace, even after the zipper broke. She used a safety pin to keep it closed. She called it her good luck charm. I held that image as carefully as I've ever held anything. Because even then, in those early weeks, I understood something that none of the living understood. The darkness doesn't take your memories. You lose them yourself. And there is nothing you can do to stop it. Here is how it happens. A memory, to exist, needs to be rehearsed, remembered over and over, kept warm by use. Even the living forget faces they don't see for years. Even the living lose names of people they loved once. Shadows don't dream. Shadows don't have conversations. Shadows don't have the involuntary, accidental triggers that keep memory alive. The smell of a certain food, the sound of a song, a stranger with the same walk. We have nothing, only the dark and ourselves and time. So we forget, not all at once, not dramatically. One morning, and I use that word loosely because morning meant nothing in the dark, I realized I couldn't remember the sound of Soo-yeon's laugh. I still remembered that she laughed. I still remembered the feeling of being near her when she did. That particular warmth, the way the room felt different, but the sound itself was gone. I searched for it for what might have been weeks, played every memory I had of her, looking for it. It wasn't there anymore. I want to tell you what that felt like, but language only gets so close to certain things. The closest I can manage is this. Imagine trying to remember a smell, not what caused it, not where you were, just the smell itself, pure and isolated. You can almost get there. You can almost feel it. And then it slips. Now imagine that was a person. I learned to take inventory. Every time we were summoned, every quiet moment between actions, I would rehearse my wife, my daughter, our apartment on the 14th floor, the coffee machine that made a sound like a dying cat but still worked, the view from our balcony at night, the city spreading out below us like something that had no idea how beautiful it was. I repeated these things like a man checking his pockets for something he's terrified to lose. My daughter's gap-toothed smile, the safety pin on her backpack, The way she smelled after she'd been outside all day, like cut grass and sunscreen and something else I never quite identified. I kept these things for years, for what felt like decades, until one morning I reached for my daughter's name and the drawer was empty. I knew she had a name. I knew that I had used it thousands of times. I knew that she had responded to it, turned her head, answered, but the name itself was gone. I tried every sound I knew, every syllable, cycling through possibilities like someone who'd forgotten a code. Nothing fit, nothing felt right. That was the day I understood that erosion isn't the same as death. Erosion is worse because the shape of the thing stays and the thing itself is gone. And you are left holding the outline. I should tell you about the old ones, not old in years. Time doesn't work that way in the dark. Old in depth. The shadows that had served before Jinwoo, before the Shadow Monarch's most recent vessel. Shadows that had been extracted from corpses when the world wore different names. They didn't stay with the rest of us, not by rule, by something quieter than rule. They drifted to the edges, stood apart, like sediment that had settled. For a long time I avoided looking at them, not because they were frightening, because of what they weren't anymore. They showed no weather, no echoes, no residue of anything that had once made them. When I finally stood near one, a knight in old armor I couldn't name the era of, I spent a long time trying to feel what came off him. Nothing. Not emptiness exactly. Emptiness implies something missing. This was simpler. This was only the posture, only the readiness, only the command that had survived everything else. Serve. There was no suffering in it, no peace either, just the final reduction. The thing you are when you have been stripped down past the last layer. I stood there for a long time, and I thought, that's where this goes. Not with a scream, not with grief, with simplification. One day I will be only the command, and I won't know that anything was ever lost. And maybe that's the mercy, and maybe that's the thing I'm most afraid of. I don't know how long it had been. Years of the world, certainly. Decades, possibly. Time in the dark is like water. It exists, but you can't hold it. Then came a day when Jinwoo attended a ceremony. We stood behind him, invisible to the living, an army that the applauding crowd would never see. I watched from behind his left shoulder. The crowd was enormous. Banners, camera lights, the particular electricity of a moment that people know they'll tell their children about. The war was over. Humanity was safe. Sung Jinwoo had saved the world. And he had. I want to say that clearly, too, the way I said my name at the beginning. He had saved the world. He was not a villain. He was a good man. He protected the living without asking for anything back. He never wanted this for us. I believe that. I have to believe that. Because if I believe he knew, if I believe he understood what we were slowly becoming and chose to look away, I can't hold that. So I believe he didn't know. I was watching the crowd when I saw her, a young woman near the front, standing on her toes to see past the taller people around her. Something about the way she moved. Recognition. Not intellectual. Deeper than that. The kind of recognition that happens in the body before it reaches the mind. I stared. She laughed at something a friend said, tilted her head to the left, and a door opened somewhere in me that I hadn't known was still there. She was too young to be Suyun, wrong generation. But the tilt of the head, the laugh I couldn't hear, but could see in her shoulders, She was related to someone I had loved. I didn't know which branch. Daughter? Granddaughter? I did the math. Granddaughter. My daughter had grown up, had children. This was her daughter. And standing there in a crowd celebrating the man I served, not knowing she was being watched by something that had once carried her grandmother on its shoulders, she had no idea I existed. I reached for my daughter's face. The outline was still there. The name still wasn't. The ceremony ended. The seasons passed. The young woman I'd seen, she grew older. I watched her when Jinwoo moved through public spaces, watched her the way the dead watch the living, without understanding why they can't stop. Then, one day, she wasn't in the crowds anymore, and I understood. She had lived, she had died, the whole arc of it, while I stood behind a king without moving. After that, I stopped searching for faces I recognized, because searching made the loss specific, and specific losses are heavier than general ones. I began thinking about Jinwoo instead, watching him the way I used to watch the old shadows, looking for what was changing, and something was, slowly, almost imperceptibly. He still loved. I don't doubt that. He still protected. He still carried the weight of humanity's survival with something close to grace. But the grief, the particular human grief you see in someone's face when they watch the people they love get older while they themselves stay still. That grief had started going quiet in him too. Not gone, just further away. Like a voice from the other side of a long corridor, he was becoming something like us. Not the way we were becoming nothing, the opposite. We were losing what made us specific. He was losing what made him temporary. Both roads led to the same country, where nothing hurts because nothing can. I'll tell you what I still have. I still have the shape of my daughter's face. Not the face itself, the shape, the impression of it. Like a mark left in clay after the original has been removed. I still have the feeling of my wife's presence. Not her voice or her face or her name. Just the temperature she occupied, the particular quality of air when she was in the same room. I still have the safety pin on the backpack. I don't know why I still have this one. Maybe because it's small enough to keep. Small things survive when large things can't. And I still have the moment Jinwoo stood over my body, looked at the shape I had left in the dungeon floor, and said the word. Everything before that is fragments now, scattered and fading, some already gone, some going. But that moment, clear and permanent as anything I have ever known. Arise. I've thought about why that moment holds when everything else is slipping. I think it's because that moment is the one the darkness agrees to remember. It doesn't need my permission. It keeps what it wants. And what it wants is its own beginning. So, that's what I have. The outline of a face, the temperature of a room, a safety pin, and one word. Someday soon, I think the outline will fade too. The temperature will normalize. The safety pin will vanish. And there will only be the word. And then I won't know there was ever anything else. And maybe that's not the worst ending. Maybe the worst ending is this. Right now, while I can still feel the weight of everything I've already lost, while I can still understand what I'm describing, while I can still say, my name was Park Jun-hyun. I had a wife. I had a daughter. I had an apartment on the 14th floor. I had 11 years of arguments about burned rice. I had a life that nobody would write stories about. And I would give everything I am, every year of this endless service. every battle I have fought, and will fight for a king who doesn't know what we're losing. For one more Sunday morning, listening to her ruin the rice. My name was Park Jun-yun. I was a husband. I was a father. I was